Well guys, if you've seen my other video, you know I'm doing some work on this Ranger. The previous video I did was replacing this broken out window with a piece of metal and getting that to seal up. So you may be interested to see that if you ever had any troubles like that. What's going on with it today? I think the alternator is bad, and the reason I say that is because the meter is showing very low as it's running. It's really low on a battery meter. We'll look at that here in a second. And also, as this thing is running, it's if you take one of the cables off the battery, the engine dies, and I'll show you all that here just right now. So we come in the truck and you can see how low that battery meter is there. So that's in the off position, that's in the run position. So it doesn't really jump up there very far. We'll go out here and I'll show you. You can take, to do this is the simplest test here. You can remove either of the cables to see if the engine will die. There you go. So I killed the engine by taking off one of the battery cables. That means that the alternator is not producing voltage to keep the engine running. The engine is actually consuming the battery. So I'm gonna remove the battery out of here, and then we're gonna get at this alternator. And I think to do that, the easiest thing is gonna be, we'll probably disconnect this wire, this clip here, just to get it out of the way. We're probably going to pop this hose off, get it out of the way, and then there are 3 bolts, 2 down there, 1 up here to loosen the alternator up, to get it off. And also we're going to have to loosen the serpentine belt, and there should be a spring tensioner on that. So it even says right here, lift counterclockwise using 3/8 inch drive wrench in hole in arm. So just follow your little manual there. And I guess I could have said this is a 1999 4.0 liter Ford Ranger. So we're going to take off the belt. We're going to take off those 3 bolts, this wire, this hose, and I'm going to see if I can, well, I guess I can get to this wire, this clip pretty easy up here. And then there's a single clip. So there's 2 clips on the alternator itself that are going to be pretty easy to get to from the top here. Probably pop those off, pull the alternator up and out of there, and then get the main charging lead off, and that should require a wrench to do that. So I'll update you in a bit. Well, I went ahead and moved this big hose. It goes over here and hooks up to the airbox. I moved it out of the way. It was a hose clamp, a 5/16 5/16 nut driver. Loosened up that hose clamp and then just folded that hose back on itself, get it out of the way, and that made access a whole lot easier. The clips all just popped right off. Like I say, I popped that one off, and then there's 2 on the alternator. Those 3 bolts just jumped right out, 13mm for those 3 bolts. And I'm gonna get a wrench and unhook this. Again, I didn't take the battery out, but I did disconnect both leads, and I tucked them down there where they're not going to make any connection. I don't want to get shocked doing this. So I'm going to disconnect that, and I'm going to stick the new alternator right there again, hook everything up. I'll catch you guys up here in a bit. All right, well, there's a new alternator sitting next to the old alternator on the bench, and I kind of flipped them around, looked them over. It looks exactly the same. The only difference I can see is that's got a bulged out little cap there, and that's flat. So I think this is an aftermarket anyhow. It's got some kind of sticker on it already. I called around my local parts stores, and well, I'll tell you what, this one's just a little bit larger diameter than that one. Anyhow, I called around my local parts stores pricing these things, and the cheap ones were like, I think they were like a 95 or 90 amp. You can get a cheap, like a 90 amp, 95 amp, something like that, or the next step up is like 130 amp, and that'd be the amount of current that the thing produces. So I wanted the more amperage, because I think I want to stick some lights on this thing, maybe some off-road lights. So I wanted a 130 amp, and that's what I bought. But I got it on eBay, and I want to say my part stores for this 130 amp were all around like 150 bucks, 135 to 150, something like that. I think I got it on eBay for like 65 bucks, brand new. So, you know, it comes with, I don't know, it comes with a diagram, supposed to be tested, and I guess that's the RPMs that, you know, where it's producing current or whatever. But so check online, you might save yourself a buck, and I'm going to get this thing stuck in there. I'll catch you guys up here in a bit. Alright guys, well you can see I got it bolted back up. With that big air line out of the way there, it's way easy to get this thing in and out. So you got the 3 bolts back on. I made this connection with that 10mm nut when it was sitting up here where it was easy to get to, and then I put the other 2 on after I already had it bolted down. Whenever I'm making wire connections and stuff, like with that one down there, that terminal end on that wire, I took a little piece of sandpaper and cleaned it up, wiped off the, you know, grit and stuff, and then I put some dielectric grease, just any old kind of, really any old grease. I used to put just regular farm grease on stuff, but that dielectric grease acts as an insulator, and most importantly, it keeps corrosion down. So it keeps the air off of something. If the air don't get to it, then it won't oxidize. So I put that dielectric grease in all 3 of those connections there. Then I put the belt back on. That's just as simple as, you can almost see it right there at the edge of my fingernail. There's a spot where your 3/8 inch ratchet goes right into there. When you put your ratchet on there, put a pipe on. I put a cheater pipe on it, and just put some, you know, pull this way, and that tensioner then pulls in out of the way, and that belt just, it slides on and off real easy then. Again, reference your belt diagram if you're not sure how it goes on. But for you guys that may not have a belt diagram, here's how it goes on for you. Under that idler, up over the water pump there, and around the crankshaft and back up. So next thing to do is attach that hose back to here. While I was in here, I may have mentioned it in this video. I know I mentioned it in my last video about this truck. There is a leak. The previous owner told me he thought it was coming out of the top of the radiator. There's a leak somewhere. While I'm in here and I got this air box off of here, I took the air box off because I could see this was leaking around this hose here. So I took the air box top off, took the air filter out, cleaned my box off, which, you know, did a little preventive maintenance there. It looks like the end of that hose is just leaking. So I took off the old spring clamp and I put on a new, you know, screw down hose clamp. So hopefully that's where my leak was. And maybe I just fix that problem too. I don't know. We'll see. It kind of looks like, then I'm investigating the other end of it. The paint's all flaking off the other end of that hose too. So I don't know if this is wrong size hose or these clamps are out around or what. But I think I'm going to go ahead and replace that too, kind of while I'm in here. Take that hose clamp off, make sure that hose looks good, and then put it all back together because it looks like pretty wet and grungy down there. So maybe that's been leaking out of this end of the hose. I don't know. Something fishy going on there. Anyhow, I'm going to put that air line back on here. That takes that 5/16 inch hose clamp after I tinker with that, and I'll catch you guys up. Okay, so I just moved this air line out of the way and realized I forgot an attachment point for this wire. I forgot about that. That main wire that comes down, got that 10mm nut holding it onto the back of the alternator. There is a clip that comes off that wire and goes under this top bolt. So since I've already got the bottom 2 plenty good and tight, I've had all 3 of them plenty good and tight, I'm going to take this bolt out, and this bolt captures that clip as well. I just forgot all about it, and I figured maybe you guys may forget that yourselves, so just a good reminder. That goes under there like that, and then I'll tighten that back down, and that holds that wire up out of the way. I'll catch you guys up here in a bit. Well, I went ahead and removed the spring clamp off of that hose there, pulled that off, and that was really rusty. This pipe really had a lot of rust underneath of it. I took a piece of sandpaper, a piece of emery cloth, a couple of pieces of emery cloth actually, or sandpaper, whatever you want to call it, and worked it around to clean up the end of that pipe, because that pipe is that's a hard line, comes up to here, and it goes out to about here under that hose. Then I was kind of feeling up inside that rubber hose because I had that, removed that connection. I was kind of feeling the inside of that hose, and it's pretty rough. And here's the end. I've turned it inside out, so you're looking at the interior of it. It's probably not going to show up on camera, but that rust, some of that rust is like embedded in the rubber. Now I tried to just clean it up with a piece of sandpaper. I was running a piece of sandpaper up inside that hose and just trying to knock the rust and crap off, and I just couldn't. It's like it's embedded in there, and the end of the hose is also kind of deformed from that last clamp. So the hose, I started finagling it around, and it had a little bit extra in it, so I cut off the end of that. Of course, like I said, now I've turned it inside out where you really can't see. There's some of that rust scale and crap that's kind of embedded in the rubber. So I cut off the end of the hose a little bit, cleaned it up real good, slid it back on, and I'm using a one of these cheap, I don't even know what you want to call it, a hose clamp, the screw style. I'm going to try that, see if that doesn't solve that problem there. So next step now is, well, I want to clean up around in there, clean up that grunginess so I can look at it later and see if it's grungy again. I know it's still leaking, but so I'm going to clean that up a bit. Then I'm going to put this all back together. This goes back on here. There's one hose clamp that holds that on there. Then I've got to make, let's see, this line goes in here, and there's a wire for this somewhere. There it is. That clips back on there, and I'll catch you guys up when I got all that done. Well, we got her all buttoned up here. The alternator is all back in place. Got the air line back on, put a little dielectric grease into that connection, plugged it back together. I topped off the radiator since I lost some when I was messing with the hose. I reconnected the battery, and before I did that, I took these connections, kind of apart a little bit. Wire brushed the posts real good, wire brushed the connectors real good, the terminal ends there, and I put them back together, tightened them up real good, put some of this battery terminal protector on it. After I made the connection, squirted that stuff on there, it kind of gets down into cracks and crevices really good, works really well. So if you don't have a can of that stuff laying around, it's real handy just because it's kind of thin and it does get down in those cracks, where if you just smear and grease on with your finger or whatever, you can't get that. I did the Redneck Special battery holder, I guess. I don't know what you want to call that. Bungee cord. It was a little long, so I tied some knots in it to get it pretty snug. I just hooked it into a hole down there and then found a hole up here and hooked onto. That junkyard Ranger I looked at the other day where I got the bed from did not have a battery holder either. I was going to snag it out of there. So I think we're ready to try starting this thing. So you're going to see this with me. I have not yet turned the key to make sure. Let's get all that crap out of the way here. Haven't yet turned the key to even see what's going on in here. So we'll see. Battery voltage is where it was before I got the key in the on position, apparently. So the battery is showing the same, which it should. It's the same battery. When we start it up, I hope to see that go up. And it did not really go up much, so let's see. I'll give it a little throttle, see what happens. Well, I'll tell you what, let's give it the battery terminal test here. We did this before, so let's do this again. I got them good and tight. Hey, there we go. Okay, boys and girls, so our new alternator is working. So I'm going to make this connection back, and you can hear it bogs the engine down when I do that. So that tells me that it's charging the battery. So let's listen to see if the engine runs up a little bit. Okay, so the engine runs up. When we disconnect that, that tells me that that is charging the battery, so that's a great sign. So as long as we're not leaking a bunch of water over here, I don't see any leaking yet. Well, I think we might have fixed our problems here. So I'll let this thing, well, you know what? That is coming up. So, hey, that's a good thing. All right, well, that pretty much does it for this project. Next thing with this truck is gonna be the four-wheel drive is not working, so we're gonna figure out what's going on with that. So if you guys like this video, click that thumbs up button. I hope I helped you, or at least was a little entertaining if I didn't help you. And if you want to see more videos of me working on this thing, click that subscribe button. You could see videos of, I got to work on this. This is a John Deere 2-bottom trip plow. I got to get that out of here, and I picked up that tractor a few days ago, so I need to do some maintenance on it just to make sure it should be in real good shape. It's only got like 700 hours on it. It's 2-year-old 52 horsepower 4-wheel drive Kubota hydrostat. I'm pretty happy to have that. I've been wanting a tractor like that for a lot of years, and we finally broke down, spent the big bucks, and bought one. So I'll be making some videos on that thing. So click that subscribe button. You never know what the heck I'm working on. Until the next video, guys, keep on tinkering.